going. So first of all, thank you all for applying for this position. It's really exciting to see four very qualified and dedicated individuals going for this job. And it's nice to see that there are four of you. And so it's also great to see that you're interested in getting active in the ABA. And regardless of the outcome of this election, I hope you all will be active in the association throughout your careers. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I would like you to start by, 2-minute introduction, who you are, where you're from, where you go to school. Of course, why you're interested in this position, and maybe a fun fact just to keep things light and help people get to know you. So just going in the order in which you are on my screen through Zoom. Travis, why don't we start with you?
Okay. My name is Travis Swallow. I am a 2L at the University of San Francisco. I grew up in Southeast Idaho, did my undergraduate degree at Brigham Young University, and then worked for a couple of years after graduation before starting law school. I have loved every minute of it so far. It's a little bit crazy right now in flux with moving to online classes, but we're managing that. I'm interested in this position because I have an interest and passion for governance and for legislation for organizations. And it's something that I've been involved with throughout my career. And it's something I'm interested in continuing to do and to experience as a member of the Board of Governors for the American Bar Association. I look forward to contributing my skills in this role.
Great, thank you so much, Travis. I forgot to say this earlier. I'm gonna ask that if you are not speaking to please mute your microphone so that we don't get any background noise, and I promise you won't hear my cat in the background, so I will be doing the same. So after Travis, again, going in order in which you are on the screen, let's move on next to Marlena. Am I saying your name right?
Me? Can you hear
yes.
me? Okay, it's actually Marlena.
Marlena, I apologize.
Yes, it's fine.
All right, why don't you go ahead then?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Marlena Ellis, and I just want to first start off by saying how humble and grateful I am to even be considered for this awesome opportunity with so many other great candidates. The ABA has a really special place in my heart because about 2 years ago, I was awarded a 3-year scholarship by the ABA, which allowed me to continue my legal education. And for someone like me, who is a first-generation college student and first-generation graduate student, a person who comes from a low socioeconomic background, a scholarship of that magnitude literally changed my life. And it is one of the driving forces for me wanting to become a part of the ABA. I figure the ABA bridged a huge financial gap for me at one point in my life. And so now I want to be the bridge or bridge the gap for law students. So that's why I decided to come out for this specific position. I have extensive leadership in both my undergraduate community and my law school community, and even my local community in Philadelphia. I'm currently a 2L at Roger Williams School of Law in Bristol, Rhode Island. Like I said, I'm from Philadelphia. I worked in the district attorney's office in Philadelphia for some time. I plan to lead with purpose, passion, and precision, and I plan to focus on mental health, increasing law student membership in the ABA, and diversion and inclusion outlets. So that's about it.
Great, thank you, Marlena. Dominique, you're next for me.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dominique Kelly. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and raised primarily in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Fun fact, I thought I was going to be running in the Olympics coming from Jamaica. My family wanted me to do that, but I decided to go to law school instead. While completing my undergraduate degree at Florida State University, I served as vice president of administration for my sorority. That required me to have regular communication with headquarters staff and membership and members of the leadership council. And so we just had to ensure that the daily operations of the chapter ran efficiently. I also served as the advocacy chair for 2 years for Relay for Life at Florida State. That was really a learning experience for me, but I was able to really engage the community in making cancer awareness and funding a top national priority. Post-graduation, I worked at a law firm where I was in constant communication with attorneys, support staff, and of course my supervisor. My work there was very much grounded in being able to learn quickly and being highly organized and communicating in a direct but respectful manner. I currently attend Syracuse University College of Law. I've served on the Student Bar Association as a 1L class senator. Currently, I serve as a executive treasurer as a 2L. I'm also the assistant student prosecutor for the law school student body. And really throughout both years, it has been an absolute pleasure serving the student body in both capacities. Just leading a little bit into my platform for this position, there are really just three main pillars that I want to use to serve as a foundation should I be elected. First, focus. Second, full commitment. And third, facilitation. So I really do look forward to diving into these a bit more as we continue on with the forum, but thank you for allowing me to introduce myself.
Great, thank you so much, Dominique. And last but not least, Johnny.
Hi, everyone. Good seeing you guys. My name is Johnny Nguyen. I am a 2L right now at the University of Colorado. Fun fact, I'm currently not wearing pants, but I am wearing shorts, so that's okay. As for why I want to run for this position, this past year, I have been serving as chair of the Law Student Division, and that's been a really life-changing role where I've been working with an amazing team to do a lot of amazing projects. And what I've really learned when taking on this role is that a lot of these projects take a lot longer than a year to do. And so why I want to run for this position is because I want to stay on the board entering my third year of law school so that we could continue the amazing work that we're doing. For example, some of the projects we're doing is changing mental health questions on the character and fitness bar applications for all the states. And so far, we got to do a lot of progress in New York so far, but there's still other states going on. And also we're talking about running a resolution before the ABA to alleviate student loans. In order to do that, we're going to run a program nationwide, but it's going to take a lot of years to get that implemented. And so I want to stay on the board, make sure all the great work's getting done, and continue representing students across the country.
Great, thank you so much, Johnny. So there are some questions that are written out here already, and I'm going to go ahead and do those. And then those are just kind of, again, some warm-ups about so that people watching this either now or later on can better understand why you're running for this position and what your mentality is about this position and how you would execute the position. And then we'll go into some questions that I've written myself based on my own experience on the board. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Sounds great.
Great. Okay. We'll just cycle through the same order so that, just keep things simple. Also, I would probably mess up. So we're going to start back with Travis. And the first question that I'm going to ask is, what previous leadership experience do you have in working on a team? Because in addition to serving on the Board of Governors, you will also be a member of the Law Student Division Council. And the only way the council can get anything accomplished and to work on behalf of law students is by working together as a team. So I would love to hear your experience in working on teams, or anytime you have had maybe a frustrating team member you've had to deal with, or perhaps when a team was not operating as a joint entity like you would hope, but how you found a way to make it work anyways.
Absolutely. So during my undergraduate experience, I was part of the Brigham Young University Student Association. I was in their activities department. So I started as an event director and moved up through that branch of the organization. My junior year, I actually served as the student body vice president of activities for that organization. Brigham Young University is heavily associated with the Latter-day Saint religion. And so there's a lot of overlap between university policies and church policies. And so there were a lot of different issues that we had to confront, where we had to address issues that came up. Students wanted certain activities planned on campus, but sometimes those activities conflicted a little bit with maybe what the church or what the university's policies were. And so we spent a considerable amount of time working with university administration to find ways that we could make student ideas work while still following the policies and guidelines that were issued by the church and the university. That obviously created a lot of conflict. We had many different experiences where we had to work with students. And the biggest way that we did that was through communication, explaining why we had the policy we had and why we needed to tweak things maybe from the original idea that came out. One specific example from that, we had a student that wanted to plan a student-run fashion show. And so students would create their own fashion pieces. They would put them together. They would recruit models to wear the pieces. And then we planned a student-run fashion show where those pieces were modeled on campus. As some of you may know, Brigham Young University has a very strict...
Travis, I'm sorry, you are well over time. We do
Okay.
have Naomi, she's kind of quiet, but she's going to say time at the end of everybody's segment.
That's fine. So essentially, just to wrap up really quickly, working with students and communicating effectively is the biggest way that I've noticed to address conflict in teamwork.
Perfect, thank you. I apologize, I did not know Naomi would be our timekeeper this evening, so I failed to introduce her, and I sincerely apologize to all the candidates and for Naomi for that oversight. Naomi, how much time does everybody have to respond?
So everyone has 1 minute to respond to questions and 1 minute for the closing as well.
Perfect, thank you. So just for all of you to keep that in mind when answering questions, Travis, I'm sorry I didn't know. We didn't mean to completely have your answer chopped off in the middle. All right, Marlena, same question.
Sure. I was previously involved on my undergraduate campus as a student council member of student government. However, my most present leadership position is as the founder of a religious organization. But unlike Travis, we are the only law student religious organization on campus. I went to the organization fair the first day of law school, or I think the first week of law school, and I noticed that there were no religious organizations on campus. And so within 90 days, I was able to assemble a team of like-minded individuals. We were able to draw up a constitution. We were able to get the requisite signatures that we needed from students on campus. And one thing that we wanted to do was negate the stigma that comes with religious organizations that only one religion can be involved. And so we just fostered a atmosphere of inclusion. I began something called Monday Motivation, where I gave motivational speeches to 100 students every single Monday, regardless of their background, regardless of their religious background, regardless of if they were sorry, that's my time.
It's okay, go ahead and finish your sentence.
Okay, and so we ran into a lot of issues with people coming to the table believing that we would not accept them. However, we worked hard and tirelessly to negate all the stigmas, like I said, that come with religious organizations, and we're able to foster an atmosphere of inclusion.
Great, thank you, Marlena. All right, Dominique, same question.
Sure. So as I said earlier, I used to work at a law firm, and when I started there, I was pretty much straight out of college. So I was one of the youngest people in my department. And so it was kind of that tension of back and forth that, oh, I want to be respected in this position, but also you all know far more than me. So it really just was a lesson in communicating and kind of understanding just the position as a whole. And in communication, just understanding who I was talking to, because some people want a very long answer and detailed and just want all of it. Other people just want, hit me with the conclusion, hit me with the final facts. And so it kind of just allowed me to kind of narrow in and understand, like, okay, this is my position here. And while I do want to be respected, you also have been here for a while and you deserve the utmost respect. So really, it was just kind of that back and forth internally with being in that position and working with a team. But
Great, thank you. And Johnny,
Yeah,
don't
sure.
say anything bad about our council.
Well, as for leadership experience, of course, there's as I mentioned already, I was chair of the law student division. That's probably the biggest leadership role I've had so far, because I was representing 110,000 students before the ABA. And I was working with an amazing council, except for one person, her name's Michaela, but she was difficult. But no, everyone on the team was great. I loved everyone, and these are people who are going to be invited to my wedding one day. But as for other areas of leadership, I really hammer on to my teaching experience. I've taught third graders before in an underrepresented community, and if you ever worked with kids, third graders like cats. You gotta take care of them. You put them down, and then you run over, take care of another kid, and then you go back to the other kid, and that kid's already gone doing something else. And I've also been a high school teacher. I taught them constitutional law, and I've also taught them know your rights stuff. And at the end of the course, I actually coached them on a moot court competition where we competed for the Marshall Brennan Constitutional Literacy Project. In this project, we specifically targeted high schoolers who come from underrepresented backgrounds in hopes of inspiring them one day to go to law school. And I'm happy to share I'll wrap up. 3 of my students made it to nationals. It got canceled because of coronavirus, but I'm very proud of that opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What do you perceive to be the most serious issue facing law students that you think the ABA should address? Now, it might not be surprising if among the 4 of you there is some overlap. So if your top issue is taken by another candidate, we'll just pick another one and move on. So back to Travis.
So I think there are a number of them, but the 2 that I wanted to focus on specifically right now is how to make that jump from the in-classroom experience to that online classroom experience. And that kind of is going to lead into the second of mental health. So because making that switch, there is the tendency for a high level of anxiety, and that adjustment of, I'm not sure how to do this, I don't know, I'm used to learning in an in-class setting, and now I have to switch to this online platform. And so that's a current example of kind of that mental health and being aware and addressing those issues as they come forward. In a more global perspective, mental health is still an issue for law students of managing the stress that comes with law school inherently with the rest of their legal education, whether that's internships and the different opportunities that they have of competition teams. Having the ability to address those with the American Bar Association is important to me because I've seen the effect that some of those mental health situations can cause.
Thank you. Marlena.
I have to piggyback, but from a different perspective. I believe mental health is one of the biggest issues that law students face today. We have institutions full of students who are succeeding but suffering. We have institutions full of people who are achieving but yet aching at the very same time. I mean, the very essence of our classroom instruction is teaching us, we're being trained how to be the ultimate problem solvers. We get hundreds of thousands, if not thousands of hypotheticals in which we're taught to, be able to solve the equation from both ends. But then where does the ultimate problem solver go? And my Monday motivation was one thing that I used to try to combat that. But I just think that in the law school community, it's full of competition in most schools. It's full of stress. And I think that we need to create an outlet for those students who may be broken and let them know, even though you're broken, even broken crayons still color. And then we will provide resources to help you through and help you through what you're going through.
Thank you. Dominique?
I think financial stability in education is a big thing, and I don't think it's going to just be a problem this year. I think, every year that you have law students, you're going to have, financial issues. You have these students that come in maybe with no understanding of how loans work or how the repayment process works or how to budget. And so I think that that's something where the ABA can really step in and provide those programs and resources. And I know they do provide some, and I think some related to loans in particular, but there are some people that come here with and don't take loans, but they have no idea how to budget, so their money is squandered away. So I really think that the ABA could step in and just provide some more programs and resources on that.
Thank you. And Johnny.
Yeah, sure. After talking to hundreds of SBA presidents and ABA representatives across all the law schools across the country and in Canada too, I've learned that the biggest issues facing law students is student debt, diversity, inclusion, and mental health. And I only have a minute, and it's not enough time to address all those things, and all those things need to be talked about more. But all these issues we need to talk about now because our generation of law students has to speak up about these issues or else they never get addressed. On the council so far, when we try to push our mental health initiative, sometimes we receive pushback from older attorneys saying that we should be weeding out law students, but mental health is a serious issue that should be at the discretion of the law student to pick if they can enter the profession. And I hope to address all these later today as well.
Okay, thank you so much. And the next question, what is your understanding of the time commitment involved with the Board of Governors position? What are your other priorities and commitments for the coming year? And what priority would you give to the ABA position should you be elected? Travis, we're going to start back with you again.
So my understanding of the position is that it's quite an extensive time commitment that you're looking at 20 to 30 hours a week of extra time that's dedicated to this position, depending on what time of year and kind of what's coming up. Excuse me, essentially the role from my understanding is that you're working on putting together position statements and preparing for different conventions where you're working with the Board of Governors to address concerns. At this point, I have no other obligations for next year. Those applications are just starting to come out, but this would be my priority for my 3L year.
Thank you. Marlena?
I'm sure. My understanding of the time commitment is that it requires about 15 to 20, if not 25 hours per week. I spoke with Michaela a bit about the time commitment before this, just to make sure that it was something that was feasible. I sat down with a professor and my advisor just to make sure that it was something that I can do. I understand that not only are you a member of the Law Student Division Council, but also you have to attend the BOG meetings, Board of Governor meetings. So I looked up all of the dates and I made sure that I picked the prospective schedule just in case I get, hopefully that I get elected, that I picked the schedule that would fit. So I couldn't take a clinic in my fall semester. I had to move that to my spring semester because those dates, coincided with the Board of Governor meeting. And so things like that, just working proactively to make sure that my scheduling was not an issue for this position.
Thank you. Dominique?
So similar to Marlena, I did speak with Michaela a little bit. And so from my understanding, there's a lot of conference calls. There's going to be a lot of projects being worked on throughout the year. So I've definitely kept my schedule open. I was recently elected to a managing editor position for our journal, but most of that work will be taken care of over the summer and kind of pre-planning. And so throughout the year, this is going to be my priority if elected.
Thank you. And Johnny?
Yep, this position, like all positions, some weeks are slow, some weeks require you to be on the ground all the time. Working the ABA, I know some weeks take 7 hours, some weeks take 40 hours because there's an emergency going on. And a great thing about, I think, the time commitment I can make for this position now is that I'm entering my 3rd year of law school, and I'm also ahead of my credits. So I'll be a part-time law student throughout the entirety of my law school. Also, the internships I'm doing will be really laid back because I'm not doing them for credit anymore since I'm maxed out. And third, I've also talked to my law school already because of the current ABA position I'm in, and they're very understanding about the requirements and demands of a lot of the travel that has to take place as well for these meetings. And I've worked with all my professors already. We have recording setting up and everything. And so if I need to go full time with this position, I have the flexibility to do so.
Thank you. Thank you all for those answers. I think we also have all spoken either in person or via email at some point in time. So it's nice to finally put faces to all the names that were in my inbox. So now we're going to move on to some questions that are more specific about the Board of Governors position and less generally about a Law Student Division Council position. So clearly the coronavirus is having a tremendous impact on how we do our daily lives. Travis, since you're in San Francisco, I think you can appreciate that with the brand new shelter-in-place order. This past week, President Martinez gave 24 hours notice that she wanted to hold an emergency session of the Board of Governors to talk about coronavirus and how it is impacting the association. As a law student representative on the board, what issues pertaining to law students would you want to raise at the meeting or have talking points prepared on, and what would be a general approach to the meeting? Again, all 4 of you will get a chance to answer this question. Travis, we will start with you.
Okay. The first thing that I would say that I would want to have information about or want to have talking points on is how that's going to affect, how any changes would affect classes, and what recommendations we could give to law schools. The role of the American Bar Association, specifically with law schools, is to give guidance and to help give that direction, as well as create the boundaries that they can operate within. And so being, as part of the Board of Governors, being available to those law schools as a resource to give that direction would be helpful. Second is understanding how any changes may impact the student's daily life. I know from my perspective, we have students that are having to move out of their dorms, all different things in the middle of the semester. And so all of that causes, like I said, some additional anxiety, and being able to address those things in that meeting and discuss those would be important.
Thank you. Marlena?
From my perspective, as a low-income law student, I think one of the first things at the top of the list is, what does this mean for homeless students? What does it mean for students who literally, when they are not in school, they don't have housing? Or what does this mean for the students when they are not in school, they don't have anything to eat? Or students such as myself who literally live off of work study funds, and you're told one day that you can no longer work and you have to struggle to survive. You know, what does it mean for those students who don't have anywhere to lay their head? Like, even for this meeting right now, and I intended for it to be on campus in a well-lit place, but now I am, you know, back home in my neighborhood, and I had to struggle to even find a quiet corner, hoping that, you know, no sirens are in the background, or, you know, no fighting ensues, or no shooting is in my background. You know, what does it mean for those students who literally, where school is an escape from your daily life, where school is literally something that saves your life and gives you an escape from poverty and a life that you know. And also just more help for the students who are so used to being in person and who really struggle with the online learning.
Thank you. Dominique?
So I think absolutely the things that Marlena and Travis touched on, looking more at housing and where money is now going to come from. Students have spent this tuition money or X dollars on housing, X dollars saved for food and things like that. Well, now what? Where do we go from here? There are also students that need to travel back home. Where do we go from here? And so I know that Syracuse has offered, you know, a free bus ride to certain hubs, and I think that is something that's great, but you know, some people don't live a bus ride away. So where do they find the money, and where do they find the support to be able to move forward for the rest of the semester, and kind of what can the ABA do to support and help them? What can they offer to them?
Thank you. And Johnny?
Yeah, I agree with all three of Marlena, Travis, and Dominique. Is that first, the displacement issue is really terrifying. A bunch of students at Harvard Law School right now just got displaced within like 3 days notice, and they have nowhere to go. And I don't want to get too much in that because I think all three of you guys did a really good job explaining it. The second issue is, I think, really bringing to the ABA Board of Governors to kind of relax on the attendance policy right now, and also the externship requirement policy, because a lot of law students right now are still putting them physically at school or physically at their externship to meet their credit requirement. But that's really deferring us away from doing our part and staying home right now and quarantining. And then third right now is, I think that law schools, especially the ABA, needs to recognize that while Zoom has been great of a resource as an alternate for classrooms, we have to still keep in mind the students in rural America right now who don't have access to broadband, and they have a hard time getting access to their education. And as Marlena well put it, sometimes school is their escape away from home, and if they don't have access to internet, which isn't an essential part of this time in our country, it's really disproportionately hurting them.
Thank you. And thank you to all four of you for those very insightful answers. I'm sure everybody who is watching will have confidence that any of you will be able to handle this job very, very well. The next question is on a much lighter note, I promise. So the sections, divisions, and forums, the various entities of the American Bar Association and the association as a whole is always looking for new ways to engage law students and young lawyers, not just in the meantime, but to help them become lifetime members of the association. As a part of this, I frequently get requests from representatives of these entities to meet with them or have a phone call with them to talk about what they are currently doing to get in contact with students, what they could be doing, and just in general, how to make themselves how to appeal to law students. So I apologize. My brain is like kind of tripping out. It's like, you need wine. It's 5:30. So with that being said, what advice would you give to representatives from these sections, divisions, and forums who reach out to you wanting to know how to better connect and engage with law students? Travis.
Yeah, so with law students, they're just like in the legal profession, our lives are very busy. We have a lot going on. And so the first tip I would say is keep it short and sweet. Any interaction that you have with a student, the more brief that interaction can be, the more the student is going to be willing to invest time. If they get an email that's pages long, they're not going to take time to read it. They will read maybe the first few sentences. The second thing is find ways to give tips and tricks for what you're talking about. So if you want to encourage them to do something or give them ways to improve, giving those little tips and tricks from their previous experience will help to connect with those students and provide that resource so that students know in the future I can come back to this group or section for additional help.
Thank you. Marlena.
I think there are multiple ways. One being just building genuine relationships with law students. Some law students are first generation law students, and they really need help just navigating the legal field. I know for myself, a lot of my mentors really helped me navigate the day-to-day of law school. Another thing is just increasing like the contests. I love what the law student division did this year with the mental health t-shirt. I was thinking something along, continuing that, doing hashtag my ABA story, and have law students who are already in the ABA going on social media saying how the ABA impacted their lives. Law students like to listen to other law students, and so just starting a campaign such as that, and also maybe sponsoring a student that can't afford the ABA. I think cost gets in the way sometimes. So maybe do like a sponsor a scholar program where a law firm or a lawyer or part of the ABA or a certain practice group reaches out to a student who is interested in that practice group, and you build relationships from there. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm really glad to hear you like the T-shirt design idea. I'm glad that framework, that the groundwork and framework of that type of competition has been established, so that future councils can just build on that and go. All right, Dominique.
I think one critical thing is to look at each class and each individual separately. So you're going to look at your 1Ls, your 2Ls, and 3Ls and see what it is that they need. So for instance, for 1Ls, you want to get in on the ground level at orientation. So send some representative there for that face-to-face contact. Yes, everything is online, but I'm old-fashioned. I want to see your face and know who you are. So, come in and talk about your section, what you have to offer to kind of drive that membership. So I really would love to see more of that one-on-one interaction. And then of course for 3Ls, having programs and bringing people in to talk about what do you do after you graduate? What happens now for bar prep and things like that. And then for 2Ls, all 2Ls want are outlines. So give me some more programs where I can get some cheap outlines and be able to communicate with other law students and kind of have that interaction to be able to be successful in that second year as well.
Thank you. And Johnny.
Yeah, my advice for the sections division is the best way to reach out to law students is personally reach out to them, physically reach out to them, not send them a giant widespread email that's going to get cluttered in your junk box anyways, because law students get 50 to 100 emails a day. And you need to personally engage, and just that personal approach of reaching out to a law student saying, hey, you should join our division. So if I was, let's say, part of the antitrust division, I would go directly to the antitrust and competitive law professor at each law school and pitch it out to the law students to get them to join the division, and also put money where your mouth is, then offer to fly them out to the conventions, the antitrust conventions and whatnot, because that's what really gets you hooked onto the ABA, is understanding what a great resource it is. And I want to suggest to use the rest of my time to suggest if Travis doesn't have to go first all the time, because that's so unfair to Travis. If Michaela, you want to shuffle up a little. So that's my answer.
I'll take it under advisement. Okay, thank you for that, Johnny. Okay, so, all right, fine, we'll switch it up and you'll be first this time. So as a member of the Board of Governors, you will be a fiduciary for the American Bar Association. This means approving the budget, even though typically the Finance and Audit Committees are the ones who do the line item budgeting. You will also be responsible for approving spending requests of various ABA entities, as well as co-sponsorship requests. It is no secret that the American Bar Association is facing tough financial times, and resources are scarce sometimes. If an entity requests to spend money that they do not have, or would cause them to increase any debt that they have, even though the program is phenomenal, right? I mean, all ABA programs are phenomenal. How would you vote on a request to spend the money, and why?
Yeah, well, first, I think there's a series of question elements I'd have to run through before voting on a finance. First, I would ask the first most important question as the at-large law student on the Board of Governors is, could this money go to law students to address student debt? Because that's the biggest financial issue right now. And I agree with you that the ABA does do a lot of great planning, but there's a lot of spending that goes kind of wasted that we don't need right now, that could go towards helping fund law students right now. And unfortunately, on the Law Student Board of Governors, as to answer your question about how you vote, there's only one law student representative on this giant Board of Governors. And part of my leadership style is to make sure that the voices of law students are represented. And before I even take a vote, I would consult my entire council first to see what their thoughts are, and then send that vote. I've done that so far in my council position as the chair of the Law Student Division, where I also am a council member on the Young Lawyers Division. Before I take a vote on any candidate or any matter before the Young Lawyers Division, I've always consulted my entire council. So that's how I'd vote.
Thank you. Sticking with this reverse order, Dominique.
So as executive treasurer for our current Student Bar Association, I think I would kind of take my approach, what I use here, into this new position. So a little bit like what Johnny said, you have a committee of people that you need to go to first before you even decide to make a decision, and you all will come to an agreement together and say, okay, so this is what we're going to present to the Senate to be voted on. Now, if there is no money there, there is no money there. If you approve something and say, okay, you can spend X dollars, chances are that's going to come from another organization. They're going to end up having to pay for it, and they will suffer the consequences of that. And so even as students, where their money is helping to fund the Student Bar Association, and there's other money that helps to fund these programs that the ABA does, you just have to keep in mind that if you say yes to something and the money's not there, that's going to come back and bite somebody.
Thank you. Marlena?
Sure. Previously, my leadership position as the director of outreach for 3 years for a mid-sized church in Philadelphia, I was in charge of things such as this. There were so many things that we wanted to do for the community, but we just didn't have, mega church money. And so a lot of times, I spoke to the pastor of the church, but I didn't allow the congregation of the church to be the last say. I literally went to the community. I went to the people who it would affect. And, we said, is this something that you really need? Sometimes it was as much as getting, uniforms for students for school. They wouldn't be admitted to school if they did not have these uniforms. And sometimes when the church couldn't hit the budget, what we did was we found alternative means of raising the money by way of a fundraiser, or by way of, if we had to sell candy, we found alternative means to raise the money. But we never spent more than was there. We found another way to come up with the money. And so that's what I would do as the ABA Board of Governors representative. I would, check with the Law Student Division to see if we could put our brains together to find out if there was some way that we could fundraise at least half of the money for this program.
Thank you. And Travis.
Yeah, so I would go through a process of steps in deciding how to vote. I would first look at, does the money directly go to impact law students? If it's something that specifically is directly going to affect law students, I would be in support of that, because that is my role, is to find ways to benefit law students in general. The second would be, if it doesn't directly impact law students, or if it's not directly affecting them, how would it indirectly affect law students? And then how many law students are we talking about? If it's only affecting a small portion, then it may not be as worthwhile to invest that money as it would be if it were affecting a large population. And then the final thing I would consider is, if approved, where would that money come from? If it's being pulled, we all know that, maybe there is a set pocket of money. And if this approved budget is being pulled from another area that has a greater effect on the lives and impact on law students, then I would obviously be hesitant to support that, because we'd be pulling that away from something that could do more good.
Thank you. Okay, last question before we move into closing statements. The law student representative to the Board of Governors has to hold their own in a group of much more experienced attorneys, and with people who are much older than you. In my case, given that I'm a K through JD, there are people on the board who are over 3 times my age. So, and all of a sudden you'll be discussing something, somebody will ask, how does this affect law students? Or what do law students think about it? And suddenly there's 45 plus heads that just focus on you and your microphone is on. Can you share an experience that demonstrates that you have the polish and maturity needed for this job? And also in interacting with other members of the board outside of meetings, because oftentimes that's an important way to help get matters through when you need votes. So we'll go ahead and start with Johnny.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I think that's a really important question to ask, because it can be very intimidating, I think, in your role, Michaela, to go into a room and come in with the prejudice that you're the youngest person in the room. That's a difficult thing to overcome. I think I've overcome that in my position as chair of the Law Student Division for the 2 times I've spoke in front of the House of Delegates. For those that don't know, the House of Delegates is the policy-making body before the ABA. It is hundreds and hundreds of members of state bar leaders across the country. And that's an intimidating crowd, but I've been able to successfully address them when I've been advocating for our resolutions that we've been pushing. And on all the counts, when I've spoken before them, I've always captivated the audience by cracking some joke, but then getting right to the policy of the issue. And I've been very fortunate to say that the resolutions I've spoke on have all passed. And so I've worked with these attorneys before. They are intimidating, but I feel like with the support of the Law Student Division, knowing that the law students across the country are depending on me to represent them, I'll get the job done.
Thank you. Dominique?
I think when there's something that you are very passionate about and you kind of know inside and out, stepping in front of a crowd, while it may seem very daunting before you do it, once you get up there, it's like something clicks. Like, okay, I got this. I'm ready to go. So I think previously when I worked at the firm, having to deal with anywhere from associates to partners on a day-to-day basis, you kind of get comfortable speaking with them because they also make you feel comfortable. They also know, you're just starting this, or you are young in your law school career, or you're young in your legal career, period. And so they kind of have that understanding as well. They're not there to intimidate you per se, but I think, just once you have it down and once you know what you're talking about, the minute that you step in front of those people, it's like, okay, I'm ready, let's go. So I really do think that it's kind of something that does come with a little experience with, speaking in front of crowds in general, but I do believe that within each and every person running, I think we all have the ability to step up to the plate in that way.
Thank you. Marlena?
As Dominique said, I believe that it comes with experience and comfort speaking in front of crowds. My very first day of law school in Rhode Island, we had orientation and they put numbers on the screen and said how mental health affected law students. And so I took it upon myself to stand up in front of a total group of strangers, about 100 and I don't know how many people were in our incoming class. And I took it upon myself to encourage those people, because I knew if I felt uncomfortable, if I felt scared walking into something new, I figured that this whole room did as well. And another experience that I had was as an intern as the homicide unit at the district attorney's office. This was the second time this case was going to trial. I found a piece of evidence that was not found before the second half of the trial. The defense was moving for a mistrial. It was our position that, hey, we just found this. We did not intentionally hold this back. I had to go in chambers with the president judge, with a decorated homicide attorney and a decorated defense attorney. I didn't even have my bachelor's degree at that time, but I spoke up and I told the judge, listen, we just found, when the judge asked me about it, I told her it's true. I just found this last night. And I told her, listen, we do not need to re-victimize this family. This is the second time it's brought to trial. And so, even though those people were in high positions, I took it upon myself to be bold and speak up.
Thank you. And Travis?
I think it comes down to confidence. So first off, confidence that in the ABA, that they have invited a member of their board to be a law student because they value that voice that you provide. So they want to hear what you have to say. Second, confidence that your fellow students have elected you to this position because they trust you to advocate for them and that they trust that you're going to do that well. And then third, confidence that you've done your research in knowing what law students want, in knowing how whatever the specific policy is, how that would affect their lives, and being able to even if you haven't had time to research that, being able to intuitively think through how would this affect me and those that are around me, as well as the law students across the country. It really comes down to confidence, and that's something that I experienced as I was working with BYU and the administration, where we had to occasionally voice the student concerns, and we had to advocate for those students.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for answering those questions. Now let's go ahead and you all can give your 1-minute closing statements. So Johnny, we'll go back to you.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me here and joining you, Michaela, and Marlena, Travis, and Dominique. It's good to put faces to names. I'm fortunate that if I don't get this position, I know that the ABA is in good hands. I guess I close by talking about sharing something that my professor shared with me on the first day of law school. And it was that it's a very special time right now to be a law student, given our current political situation and current dynamic of the legal profession. Our generation is going to be the generation that's going to define what justice means. And with how polarized this country is, we are the future of the legal profession, the future of the judiciary, the future of what fairness means. And I hope that in being a part of this council again for another year, I'll be able to continue the great work, continue defining what justice means, and best represent law students. So thank you so much, everyone. And I'll see you at the election polls, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Dominique?
So again, thank you, Michaela, for hosting this forum. Just to conclude, I want to work towards kind of a student-centered focus when decisions are being made here, fully commit to ensuring that the voice of law students are really woven into the fabric of the ABA and the fabric of the decision-making process. And then I also want to facilitate a stronger connection between the ABA and law students. I want students to realize that their voice is loud and powerful, and kind of recognize that they have that power in molding their future and molding the future of the legal field. And I also want to ensure that they have the support of the ABA at every point in their career. So again, my name is Nominee Kelly, and I hope for your support and vote to be the next law student at large on the Board of Governors. And I hope to see you on the upcoming term.
Thank you. Marlena?
Hey everyone, it's Marlena Ellis again. I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you, Michaela, for hosting. And thank you all for being wonderful competitors in this race. I know it will be a tough one. You all are very qualified. I just want to say a vote for me is a vote for a woman of great character, a woman of great integrity. I walk with boldness, but yet I speak with grace. I come from an underrepresented background. However, I've risen to the occasion in every situation that I've been in. Monday Motivation is just a snippet of my heart to serve law students and to give back to law students. As I said, the ABA bridged a huge financial gap for me 2 years ago. So give me the chance to bridge the gap for you as your next law student representative. And remember, broken crayons still color.
Thank you. And Travis?
Yeah, I echo all of the thanks that have already been mentioned. Michaela, thank you for hosting this. It's been a pleasure, and best of luck to my fellow candidates. I just wanted to reiterate my points that are available on my candidate statement on the ABA website. That my goal is to represent the voice of all law students. That I want to recruit and retain the interest of law students and recent graduates. After they've finished law school, it's important that they remain active members of the American Bar Association and give back to future law students. And then the third thing that I want to do is find better ways to serve students and to continue to serve them throughout their careers. By voting for me, those are the priorities that I will be looking for and that I will be working towards accomplishing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all four of our candidates for joining me this evening for this Q&A. You all are qualified for the position, and I think any one of you would do extremely well as the representative on the board, and I look forward to introducing any of you to the remainder of the board at our June meeting in Chicago, assuming coronavirus does not cancel that too. All right, so Sarah, I think, is this a time for any last minute questions that the candidates have moving forward or anything else?
Yes, absolutely. Does anybody have any last minute questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We will get this posted online for all of the voters in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, you too.
Right.